The cameras had barely settled before the tension began to hum beneath the studio lights. It was supposed to be an easy morning, a celebration of Denzel Washington's decades of unmatched legacy in film, honor, and leadership. Good Morning America had teased the segment all week. An exclusive with the legend himself, Denzel Washington reflects on life, legacy, and the future of Hollywood. But what millions expected to be a soft, nostalgic sit-down turned into one of the most unforgettable live moments in morning television history. Comment below where you're watching from, because this one shook every corner of the internet. The energy inside the ABC studio that morning was pure electricity. Robin Roberts, polished and professional, smiled her way through the opening pleasantries. But there was an undertone, the kind only seasoned viewers could detect. Her questions, subtly sharp, carried a faint sting, almost as if she wanted to test him, to see if the Denzel Washington everyone revered could be rattled. "Denzel," she began, voice soft but laced with something calculated. "You've been called one of the last true Hollywood gentlemen. But some say the industry's changed, and those old-school values don't fit in today's Hollywood anymore. Do you think people still owe respect to actors of your generation?" It was phrased like a question, but it landed like a challenge. The crowd chuckled awkwardly. Denzel smiled, that iconic, slow, knowing smile that said more than 1,000 words. He adjusted his suit, leaned forward slightly, and for a second, the set went silent. Even the cameras seemed to hesitate. Robin pressed again, as if she hadn't already felt the tremor in the air. "I mean, there are younger actors now, the new generation, social media stars, who believe respect isn't something that should be assumed, even by legends. What do you think of that?" The words, "even by legends," echoed across the studio. Denzel didn't move. He blinked once, twice, the smile fading into that quiet, commanding stillness that defined every role he ever played. For the next 10 seconds, he said nothing. But those seconds stretched like a lifetime. And then, with a voice that carried the weight of years, dignity, and experience, he said softly, "The problem today isn't that people don't know talent. It's that they forgot how to respect it." Gasps rippled through the audience. Even Robin seemed momentarily stunned. But that was just the beginning. What the cameras didn't catch right away was the context. Behind the scenes, sources close to production had whispered that Robin's producers wanted a spicier interview, something viral, something that could trend before noon. Denzel's reputation for avoiding controversy made him the perfect target for a little live provocation. They thought he'd deflect, laugh, move on. They were wrong. Because Denzel Washington wasn't just an actor sitting in a chair. He was an institution. And institutions don't crumble, they echo. As the interview continued, Robin leaned in again. "So when you talk about respect, do you mean people in Hollywood or the audience? Because, social media has been saying lately that some of your comments in old interviews feel out of touch." There it was, the trigger. The crowd shifted uncomfortably. You could feel the collective breath tighten. Denzel inhaled slowly. He nodded, then said, "Out of touch? No. I've just been around long enough to know what real touch feels like. Respect, family, faith, hard work. You don't scroll that. You earn it." The audience erupted. Applause thundered through the studio. And somewhere in the back, a production assistant mouthed, "Oh my God." Robin's smile tightened. For a split second, you could see she lost control of the narrative, and Denzel had seized it effortlessly. Suddenly, the tone of the segment changed. It was no longer an interview. It was a masterclass, and Denzel Washington was schooling the nation live. He wasn't shouting. He wasn't angry. But the conviction in his voice carried the same force as his most iconic movie moments. Robin tried to regain composure, but Denzel wasn't done. He continued, "You see, people confuse popularity with purpose. Fame doesn't make you important. Character does. And when you lose the ability to honor those who pave the way, you lose direction, you lose culture." The studio audience went silent again. It wasn't a silence of discomfort. It was reverence. Even Robin Roberts' co-host, standing offstage, looked on in disbelief. Then, with the confidence of a man who'd seen both the rise and fall of fame, Denzel added the line that would define the moment. Respecting legends doesn't make you old school. It makes you grateful. And right there, that was it. The line that would explode across social media, stitched into countless clips, quoted in every post, turned into a cultural moment. By the time the commercial break hit, hashtag Respect the Legends was already trending. Producers scrambled, the control room buzzed, and within minutes, the clip began circulating across Twitter, TikTok, and Instagram Reels. Commentators, bloggers, even rival networks replayed the footage. Some praised Robin's bravery for challenging an icon. Others accused her of trying to humiliate a legend for views. But most agreed on one thing. Denzel's calm, poetic defense of respect had cut deeper than any heated argument ever could. He hadn't raised his voice. He hadn't insulted anyone. He simply reminded the world of something it had forgotten: reverence. After the break, the atmosphere in the studio was entirely different. Robin tried to pivot. She smiled wider, laughed louder, but the audience wasn't following her energy anymore. Their eyes were on Denzel. Every word, every pause, every micro-expression, they were listening. When the cameras came back, she tried to reset the tone. So, Denzel, let's talk about your upcoming project. You're directing again, right? He nodded politely. Yes, ma'am. A Journal for Jordan taught me patience. But this new one? It's about legacy, about the cost of forgetting who built your bridge before you crossed it. That line, deliberate, layered, and rich with meaning, felt aimed at more than just Hollywood. The audience clapped softly. Robin forced another laugh. But she knew the tone had shifted permanently. Because this was no longer a Good Morning America interview. This was a reckoning, and Denzel Washington was no longer just a guest. He had become the voice of a generation that refused to be erased. When Good Morning America returned from that commercial break, the studio air was no longer light or casual. It felt charged, like the kind of silence that comes right before thunder. Producers whispered in headsets. Cameramen stood frozen, lenses locked on Denzel's composed expression. Robin Roberts smiled, but behind the professional poise was a flicker of uncertainty. The interview that was supposed to boost ratings had turned into something she could no longer steer. Denzel's statement, "Respecting legends doesn't make you old school. It makes you grateful," had already started spreading like wildfire. Within minutes, social media became a battlefield. Clips from the segment flooded X, formerly Twitter, Instagram Reels, YouTube Shorts, everywhere. The hashtags multiplied. Hashtag Respect the Legends, hashtag Denzel Washington, hashtag Robin Roberts, hashtag Good Morning Showdown. On one side were those defending Denzel, celebrities, veterans, and fans who'd grown up watching his performances in Training Day, Malcolm X, and Remember the Titans. They said he spoke for every hard-working artist who'd been quietly replaced by influencer culture. On the other were those accusing him of being too traditional, out of touch, or resistant to progress. Every outlet wanted a slice of the story. By noon, CNN Entertainment aired a headline. Denzel Washington's on-air clash sparks debate. Has Hollywood lost its respect for legends? MSNBC ran another. Robin Roberts challenges Denzel. Did she go too far? And by evening, the entertainment ecosystem was ablaze. Inside Beverly Hills cafes and studio boardrooms, executives re-watched the clip. Veteran actors texted one another privately. Some sent supportive emojis, others long paragraphs thanking him for saying what we've all been thinking. Morgan Freeman, in a rare comment, reposted the clip with the caption, "There's a difference between fame and legacy." Denzel said it best. Viola Davis chimed in, "This man has carried dignity through decades. Let's not mistake humility for silence." Suddenly, the moment wasn't just about one interview. It was about Hollywood's soul. Meanwhile, the second half of the live show resumed. Robin, clearly shaken by the audience's shifting loyalty, tried to lighten the atmosphere again. She laughed a little too loudly and said, "Well, Denzel, I think the internet's going to have a field day with this one." Denzel chuckled quietly, leaned forward and replied, "I don't mind the noise. I just hope they listen to the message." Then he turned slightly toward the audience, not the camera, but the real people sitting in the studio, and added, Because respect isn't just about age or fame. It's about how we treat one another when the cameras stop rolling. The audience burst into applause again. This wasn't performance. It was truth. Robin swallowed hard, clearly realizing she had awakened something far larger than a morning show soundbite. By afternoon, talk show panels, YouTubers, and podcasts dissected every syllable of that exchange. The View debated whether Robin had crossed a line. TMZ Live called it Denzel's masterclass in composure. On X, young actors defended her, saying New Hollywood is about equality, not hierarchy. But every attempt to spin the narrative only gave Denzel's words more reach. Memes began circulating. Images of Denzel with the caption, "You don't scroll respect. You earn it." Even universities joined the discussion. A media ethics professor from NYU tweeted, "This wasn't just an interview. It was a clash between eras, performance versus principle." Behind closed doors, Robin's producers were in damage control mode. Ratings had skyrocketed, yes, but the backlash was brutal. Public comments under ABC's official upload of the interview were 90% in Denzel's favor. He didn't raise his voice once, but he won the room. Robin tried to play checkers with a chess master. Respect isn't trending, it's timeless. Even staff members from Good Morning America leaked anonymous notes to entertainment bloggers, admitting the interview had been pushed for virality. One source told Variety, the producers wanted a clip that would shake things up. They got it, but not the way they expected. As the storm grew, Denzel said nothing. He didn't post, didn't tweet, didn't clarify. For 3 days, he vanished from the conversation entirely. That silence, deliberate, measured, only amplified the mystique. Entertainment anchors begged for a follow-up. One late-night comedian joked, Denzel goes to the internet like a legend, and somehow won the argument without saying another word. But then on day 4, Denzel appeared at an awards night charity event in Los Angeles. He was calm, smiling as always, walking the carpet with grace. A reporter dared to ask, Mr. Washington, any comments on what happened with Robin Roberts? Denzel paused, looked directly into the camera, and said softly, respect isn't about winning a moment. It's about remembering who you are when people try to take it from you. Then he walked away. No more, no less. And that single line reignited everything. Days later, Robin Roberts opened Good Morning America with a noticeably different tone. Looking directly into the camera, she began, I've been in journalism for decades, and sometimes, in pursuit of a strong interview, we forget that respect goes both ways. Denzel reminded us of that. Her voice cracked slightly. I've reached out privately to Mr. Washington, and I want to say publicly, he's right. Legends deserve honor, and I thank him for reminding me of that truth. The apology was sincere, humble, and raw. The audience applauded. Social media softened. Even Denzel's fan pages reposted the clip with captions like, Real strength is in grace. Both of them showed it. But something deeper had already begun shifting across the entertainment landscape. Every studio boardroom suddenly reevaluated its tone toward veteran artists. Networks that once chased clicks began holding internal meetings about respectful journalism. An NBC producer tweeted anonymously, that one interview changed the culture. We used to think viral meant volume. Now it means values. Denzel's phrase, respecting legends doesn't make you old school. It makes you grateful, began appearing on t-shirts, motivational posters, and inspirational TikTok edits. Even schools and mentorship programs quoted it in leadership seminars. And yet, not everyone was happy. A faction of young influencers felt called out. They posted videos mocking the phrase, saying, respect is earned, not given, even to legends. The debate turned into a generational war online. Boomers versus Zoomers, tradition versus trending, respect versus relevance. But no matter how loud the arguments got, the calm gravity of Denzel's voice still dominated the conversation. By week's end, one more unexpected twist hit the headlines. Robin Roberts announced a special follow-up episode titled, Legacy and Change, a conversation about respect. The network invited Denzel to return, not for confrontation this time, but for dialogue. Insiders reported that he initially declined, but after a private call from Robin herself, he agreed on one condition. We talk about what respect really means, not just in Hollywood, but in life. That announcement alone sent viewership predictions soaring. The nation prepared for round two, not a clash this time, but a conversation destined to define a generation. And as promos rolled out with Denzel's stoic face and Robin's humbled smile, one tagline echoed across screens. Two voices, one message, respect. The stage was set again, and everyone knew the follow-up would either heal the wound or deepen the divide. The day of a reunion felt like a televised truce wrapped in suspense. Outside ABC headquarters, camera vans crowded the sidewalks. Fans held up cardboard signs reading "Legends deserve respect" and "Thank you, Denzel." Inside, the Good Morning America set had been redesigned. The bright yellows were dimmed to warm golds. The lighting softened, almost reverent. You could tell the network wanted redemption, and they wanted it live. The broadcast opened with a slow pan across the studio audience. Veterans, young actors, journalists, even high school students invited from local drama clubs. It wasn't just a TV crowd anymore. It was a cross-section of America's conscience. Robin Roberts entered first, her usual poise tempered by humility. She greeted the audience softly, her voice steadier than the trembling of her hands. Then came Denzel Washington. Tailored gray suit, calm stride, that quiet aura that could silence a room before he even spoke. The crowd rose to their feet in spontaneous applause, not cheering but honoring. Robin gestured toward him, smiling through a breath she didn't realize she was holding. "Mr. Washington," she began, "thank you for coming back." He nodded politely. "Thank you for inviting me back." And with that, the temperature of the room changed. No music, no forced laughter, just conversation. Robin leaned forward. "I've been thinking a lot about our last conversation, and I realize sometimes journalists chase moments instead of meaning." Denzel smiled faintly. "It happens to all of us. The world moves fast, but values shouldn't." A murmur of approval rippled through the crowd. Robin exhaled. "When you said respecting legends doesn't make you old school, it makes you grateful," the world heard it. "But I want to know, what does respect really mean to you?" Denzel paused. His eyes glimmered under the studio lights. "It means recognizing the hands that built the table you're eating at. It means speaking with honor, even when you disagree. And it means never letting applause make you forget your purpose." The crowd went silent again, the kind of silence that vibrates in your chest. Every major outlet streamed the reunion live. In classrooms, teachers projected it as a lesson on integrity. Barbershops and cafes turned up the volume. TikTok stitched live reactions. Pastors quoted him mid-service. Even the stock tickers on business channels flashed short headlines. Denzel and Robin, Redemption Live. The phrase "respect economy" started trending, analysts using it to describe how character had suddenly become the most valuable currency in celebrity culture. Halfway through the segment, Robin grew emotional. "Denzel," she said softly, "in our first interview, I was trying to get a soundbite, but you gave us a sermon, and it made me look at my own work differently." He smiled, kindly but firm. "You're doing fine, Robin. The key is, never forget why the mic was given to you. It's not to talk over people. It's to lift them." Tears glistened in her eyes. She reached across the table, touched his hand lightly. "Thank you," she whispered. The audience applauded. Long, steady, cleansing applause. As the reunion aired, Hollywood froze. Production halted in several studios as crews watched the live stream on phones and monitors. A-list actors posted clips with captions like, "This is what healing looks like." Real conversation. Real respect. Even The Tonight Show opened that evening with a monologue praising both of them. The host quipped, "We just witnessed something we don't get anymore, accountability with grace." For the first time in years, social media agreed on something. Halfway through the broadcast, Denzel surprised everyone. He stood up, looked directly at the camera, and addressed the audience, not the studio, but the millions watching at home. "We live in a time where it's easy to clap back, easy to cancel, easy to judge. But the harder thing, the thing that builds legacy, is to understand. He gestured toward Robin. She asked tough questions. I answered from the heart. That's what dialogue should look like. Respect isn't silence, it's listening. The crowd erupted, not in a roar, but in a standing ovation that lasted almost a full minute. Even Robin, visibly moved, joined in. When the show ended, streets outside ABC were lined with fans waiting just to glimpse Denzel as he exited. Some held flowers. Others, homemade signs quoting his words. A little boy no older than 10 shouted, "Thank you, Mr. Washington." Denzel stopped, smiled, and knelt to the boy's eye level. Remember, young man, respect starts with how you treat your parents. That's the first stage of greatness. It was caught on camera, instantly going viral again. By nightfall, hashtag Stage of Greatness trended beside hashtag Respect the Legends. News commentators couldn't resist dissecting the cultural moment. On CNN Tonight, a sociologist said, "What Denzel did today was redefine influence. He proved that silence, patience, and principle can outperform outrage." A tech columnist at Forbes called it the birth of the value-based influencer era. Even financial channels tied it to economics. Brands are shifting to legacy-aligned ambassadors. Respect, trust, and authenticity, that's the new gold. The conversation had grown far beyond celebrity. It had become about leadership. Later that evening, Denzel returned home. No press, no entourage, just peace. He sat on his porch. The city hummed faint in the distance. His phone buzzed. Messages from fellow actors, from Robin, from his children. One text stood out. From a young actor he'd mentored years ago. "Thank you for defending what matters. You made us proud today." Denzel smiled. Typed back only 3 words. "Do it daily." Then he set the phone down and looked toward the skyline. The city was quiet again. The noise had passed. But the echo of his words lingered everywhere, on screens, in hearts, in boardrooms and classrooms. Within weeks, talk shows began adopting new ethics policies. Producers discussed respect clauses. Entertainment journalism courses added modules titled Integrity in Interviewing. The ripple was undeniable. What started as one tense exchange between a journalist and an actor had turned into a blueprint for public grace. Churches quoted it. Corporations used it in leadership retreats. Even school assemblies recited his line, "You don't scroll respect. You earn it." It wasn't just a phrase anymore. It was a principle. As Good Morning America closed that historic episode, Robin addressed viewers directly. We live in an age of quick takes and fast headlines. But today reminded me that true journalism and true humanity requires respect. Mr. Washington, you didn't just speak to Hollywood. You spoke to the human heart. Denzel nodded, gracious as ever. "Thank you, Robin. Respect is the bridge between us. And the world needs more bridges." They shook hands. The cameras faded to black. And for the first time in years, America collectively exhaled. Months had passed since that morning that changed everything. The clip had stopped trending, but its message hadn't. The digital storm had quieted into a cultural shift. The entertainment world was different now. Gentler, wiser, more self-aware. Producers were less reckless with their interview tactics. Actors were less defensive with their answers. And at the heart of it all, one man's calm defiance had rewritten the rules of modern discourse. Some moments fade as soon as the news cycle resets. This one refused to die. Church sermons quoted it. Motivational speakers framed it. Politicians even referenced it during campaigns. But the beauty wasn't in the noise, it was in the silence that followed. Denzel Washington didn't capitalize on the attention. He didn't release a tell-all or do a victory tour. He simply went back to work, on film sets, in community projects, and at his foundation for youth mentorship. When journalists asked if he realized how big the moment had become, he said only it was never about going viral. It was about going right. That line, too, found its way onto T-shirts and classroom walls. Meanwhile, Robin Roberts' career took a surprising turn. Upward. Her willingness to face the fallout, to apologize publicly, and to rebuild her credibility had earned her more respect than she had ever gained from ratings alone. In interviews afterward, she reflected, Sometimes God uses your mistakes to show you your mission. Her new podcast, Conversations that Heal, launched with Denzel as the first guest. It became one of the most streamed shows of the year. The episode title, Respect, Redemption, and the Power of Listening. Together, they laughed about that first awkward exchange, but beneath the laughter was deep admiration. Two veterans of media and cinema who had discovered that vulnerability, when met with respect, becomes strength. Hollywood, for once, took notes. During the following award season, the Academy of Motion Picture Arts and Sciences introduced a new mentorship initiative, the Legacy Project, pairing veteran actors with emerging talents. Its tagline borrowed directly from Denzel's now iconic quote, "Respect isn't old school, it's gratitude." Studios began celebrating anniversary screenings of classic films, not just for nostalgia, but to honor the artists who built the craft. Even music award shows started their segments differently. Instead of just highlighting youth, they balanced it with tributes to legends who paved the way. The pendulum had finally swung back toward balance. In private, though, Denzel Washington lived like a man unchanged by fame. He was often spotted mentoring young actors on smaller projects, visiting schools, or spending quiet evenings at home. He turned down several major talk show invitations that wanted him to revisit the viral moment. To him, it was done. The message was out there. He didn't need to say more. But one night, during a charity gala for underprivileged film students, he finally opened up, not to a journalist, not to a crowd, but to a group of young filmmakers sitting cross-legged on the floor near his table. "The camera is a mirror," he told them. "Whatever you believe about people, respect, cynicism, love, hate, that's what the lens reflects. So before you point at someone, decide who you are first." The students sat in awe. It wasn't a lecture. It was a passing of fire. That same year, Robin sent Denzel a handwritten letter. Inside it read, "You taught me that respect is not a performance. It's a posture. Thank you for giving me back my compass." He never shared the letter publicly, but he kept it framed in his study. And when visitors asked what it was, he'd smile and say, "A reminder that truth has no enemies, just lessons." By the one-year anniversary of that fateful interview, ABC aired a reflective documentary titled The Morning That Changed the Conversation. It combined unseen footage, reactions, and cultural analysis. Critics called it the most important conversation on American television in years. In one emotional segment, the documentary replayed the moment Denzel said, "You don't scroll respect. You earn it." And then the screen faded to black. Just those words. No music. No graphics. Just silence. The kind that hums with realization. The world had learned something vital. That respect wasn't weakness. It was discipline. That humility wasn't submission. It was mastery. That silence wasn't retreat. It was command. And through one televised misunderstanding, the culture rediscovered its backbone. Denzel Washington hadn't just defended his own legacy. He had defended every legacy, every quiet artist, every unsung worker, every elder who'd been dismissed in a world chasing trends faster than truth. He had reminded the world that the loudest person in the room isn't always the leader. Sometimes it's the calmest one. Months later, on a quiet Sunday morning, Denzel stood alone on the balcony of his Los Angeles home. The sunrise painted the city gold. He looked out at the skyline, the same skyline that had once worshipped fame above all else. He smiled softly and whispered, almost to himself, "Respect isn't what they give you. It's what they can't take away." Behind him, the faint hum of church bells echoed through the hills. Fade to black. The end.